What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Alpha Skies, and in today's video I want to discuss what I personally feel is one of the most important PvE fundamentals with all of you today, and this is going to be more specifically directed towards players that either struggle with PvE content or are just new to the game as a whole. And the purpose of this video is going to be trying to shed a little bit of insight on some very important information to help all of these individuals feel more powerful and contribute more to the team and overall just deal more DPS. And I'm going to also recommend two different weapons here in specific that both of them are actually going to revolve a little bit around your schedule. Jumping straight into it, we need to first discuss what is truly important when it comes to strong PvE weapons. For starters, when it comes to PvE, it is extremely obvious that players will recommend specific weapons to farm, just like I will be doing for you in this video. And some players don't exactly have all of the time or the desire or the patience to farm these weapons for their ideal roles, will simply get copies of these weapons without truly investing the time into getting what actually makes these weapons broken as a whole, that being the perks and the perk combinations that these weapons offer. So lots of players will often go and simply farm whatever weapons they see popular streamers using or whatever weapons YouTubers are recommending without actually farming out the roles that you need for it, not realizing that the impact those perks are going to make for these weapons in endgame activities drastically better than what they would be without farming those perks. And again, I think it's extremely important to make an emphasis to players now and to help newer players understand that although yes, there are weapons in the game that are used at much higher volumes than others, but it isn't actually the weapon itself that the people are after. It's actually for the unique and powerful perk combinations that that weapon brings to the table. So the current DPS meta in Lightfall as of now is rocket launchers, which is going to be why in this video I'm going to be recommending launchers for players to obtain, as Master Mode did just recently release for the raid as of today on the 28th, and I think just giving this out and letting people know these weapons and stuff like that is going to give them a much better chance at finding groups that are able to clear this kind of stuff and help make sure that they have a better understanding and have the gear that they need to clear these types of activities. So there are three questions that honestly are a huge impact to players that don't have a lot of time when it comes to the game itself. First one being, what perks do I need to look for? 2, do I really need to spend all of this time and resources on farming a perfect role in these launchers? And 3, are there no alternatives that won't take me as long to get? And we're going to go ahead and start answering all of these questions now. The first question being, what perks do I need to look for? So I think the best place to start is going to be what I feel overall is by taking a look at the best legendary rocket launcher in the game currently, and that being the Hothead. And taking a look at its loot table, we can see that it doesn't actually have a massive perk pool, as it only actually has 6 perks in the 3rd slot and 6 in the 4th slot. And what makes this weapon's perk pool so strong is the combination of the perks that you can put on the weapon that will not only give you the most damage out of it, but the most consistency from the weapon overall. For example, looking in the 3rd column of this, we're going to see some amazing perks that are going to support reload speed on the weapon or unique reload interactions on the weapon to reduce the amount of time spent in between each shots to help you maximize your DPS output. The perks in question being Impulse Amplifier, Field Prep, Demolitionist, Ensemble, and Auto-Loading Holster. Each of these perks all provide great bonuses, however they are relatively situational when it comes to certain perks. And I want to use Demolitionist specifically as an example because it is honestly an insane perk whenever it is fully utilized. However, the only way to fully utilize this perk is that you have to have a very high grenade recharge build to consistently throw grenades between shots to reload your launcher. Without that, you won't be getting near as much out of this perk as you would the other choices. Ensemble is also a really strong perk, but again, situational. You do have to be nearby an ally in order to actually activate the perk, meaning that when it comes to solo content, it's relatively useless. Impulse Amplifier is an okay choice. Although it doesn't grant you a lot of reload speed, it is consistent in any field of content as there is nothing that you actually need to do in order to gain the passive of that perk. Auto-Loading Holster is a good choice. However, when it comes to raids or dungeons DPS in specific, this perk really begins to struggle in any form of real efficient help in long damage phases, as obviously it doesn't actually grant any reload speed. And the one that I personally feel that most people should go for if it is available is going to be Field Prep. Again, it is my personal preference for everybody to go pretty much 100% of the time if it is available on the weapon, as it is going to increase your base reload speed, in fact, more than any of the other perks we've already discussed, just by crouching. Not only that, it's also going to increase your weapon's reserve count. Now moving over from the 3rd column, let's go ahead and move over to the 4th, and on the 4th column, we specifically want want to find perks that are going to increase the amount of damage that we are able to output with our launchers. So again, looking at the Hothead in specific, there are 4 perks on this one that I think are generally good for just about any launcher in the game, and you should highly consider looking for. The first of which being a very solid and consistent perk, Vorpal Weapon. And what makes this perk extremely good is the fact that you're going to gain a passive damage increase of 10% on your launcher for doing absolutely nothing. It is literally going to be active 100% of the time, and there is nothing that you have to do in order to get this damage percent. Looking at another perk here, we see Clown Cartridge. This perk is going to increase your magazine size upon reloading, allowing your launcher to have 2 rockets in the chamber instead of just 1. This is going to increase your DPS in terms of burst damage. However, when it comes to actual longer damage phases, your launcher as a whole isn't actually doing any more damage after you shoot all of the launchers out, so it is good for things like bursting down champions and nightfalls, but when it comes to longer DPS phases against bosses, this launcher's damage is going to drop off significantly in the long term. Explosive Light. Picking up an orb of power is going to increase your next projectile's blast radius and damage by a whopping 25%. And your launcher is allowed to hold a max of 6 stacks. This is the best perk to seek in my opinion, as the only real setback to the perk is that if you don't generate a lot of orbs in solo content, you're going to have a little bit of issues with that. But honestly, with the mods at our disposal today, it has never been easier than now to spawn an absolute insane amount of orbs either way. And Lasting Impression. Rockets will attach and impact and detonate after 3 seconds, allowing it to deal an additional 20% total damage increased overall. And although this perk is relatively strong on paper, you're actually going to run into some major issues with it when it comes to damaging bosses or champions, as if the damage phase ends or if a champion recovers from a stun before the 3 seconds of the last rocket you had shot on the enemy is up, you will essentially have wasted heavy ammunition for no reason whatsoever. And all of these perks as a whole are really just a few examples of what you as the player need to be looking for on weapons in the near future as more and more weapons continue to be released. Now let's go ahead and address the second question that we were asked, and that is going to be, do you actually have to farm a perfect roll to get the best out of these launchers? Sure, in theory, if you want to get the absolute best, you do, but you absolutely do not have to. I would prefer and recommend that you try your hardest to get the best damage buff perk on these weapons, because that's going to help you a lot more than going for the absolute best reload perks, because again, there are other mods and exotics that are in the game that are going to help you with your reload if you need those to pick that up. And now we're going to be moving on and actually looking at the rocket launchers I think you players should be going for right now, and this is going to also kind of address the question of, well, are there any other launchers that may not be as good but are going to save me a lot of time if I go for those as opposed to the other one? Yes, there is going to be, and I'm going to let you know right after we take a look at the first launcher that we're going to be discussing. So first and foremost, I do want to actually go ahead and make a big emphasis to you guys that this first rocket launcher is going to be the best rocket launcher to farm in the game right now, and I want to make a big emphasis on when I say farm right now, because although I know I had literally just told you that I felt like the Hothead was the best legendary rocket launcher in the game, I actually have to strongly advise against you farming for it right now. That being said, if you somehow have an adept one from the past that has Demolitionist and Field Prep in the 3rd slot and Explosive Light in the 4th, then, you know, don't worry about this. But obviously, this video is intended for a majority of the people that are not going to have those in their arsenal. So instead, we're going to jump into the best rocket launcher that you can currently farm in the game, that being the Blowout. This rocket launcher can currently drop from any PvP activity, as well as it can also be focused at the cost of a single Crucible engram. Some individuals are going to argue that it really isn't that much better, as the perk pool has 12 perks in the 3rd slot and in the 4th slot, but that's actually not too much of an issue, as resets will allow more perks to spawn in the 3rd and 4th column for this weapon, allowing up to 3 after 3 resets, which is going to drastically reduce the amount of RNG that you need to get that solid roll. So this launcher does take a bit of time to invest in, as your best chances of getting the rolls that you want is going to involve you having to play a lot of PvP and reset your rank at least twice so that you can have that chance of rolling the additional perks on your gun every single time one drops, or that you focus your engrams beyond that point. And although it is going to be the best one and the most effective one to get your hands on right now, if you don't have the time to invest, I would actually highly recommend going and crafting the Palmyra Bee. This rocket launcher is crafted at the Enclave after you've obtained the pattern by simply completing the Shaping Resonance Alloy side quest, and from what I understand, pretty much every player has access to this pretty much right off of the start. And the only real downside to this rocket launcher is the fact that you can't roll field prep, but you can get Enhanced Impulse Amplifier, which is not only going to give you that reload speed that is very consistent for all activities, but the enhanced version of the perk is going to further increase that reload speed. Not to mention that you're also able to put on Enhanced Explosive Light, which will allow the rocket launcher to have 7 stacks of Explosive Light instead of 6. And then we take that and pair it with the fact that this rocket launcher is also a hotkey precision frame, which basically gives you another perk built into it, as it will have auto tracking on its missiles whenever you just ADS with your weapon and lock onto a target. But with all of that out of the way, once again, my name is Alpha Skies, and if you guys enjoy videos like this and you want to see more videos like this in the future, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as it will really help me out a lot reach my goal of reaching 1K subs by the end of this year. And go ahead and hit that notification bell so you know when my videos are uploaded. I will be making more guides like this to try to help a lot of players out, but with all of that out of the way, I will catch you guys in the next video.